There is a certain plenitude on this day. Indeed, we have that very word in the Latin of the first reading. Ubi venit plenitudo temporis, when the fullness of time had come. A reading which we used to say every morning at prime in the office of our Blessed Lady, which preceded the canonical office. A reminder that time is passing. I was therefore reflecting on this in this last Sunday of the year. Time passing. I remember one comment that was made by a retreatant years ago as this person left the monastery having made a quiet retreat. It was this: having observed how the whole day was commanded by the brazen Muezzin, which is the monastic bell, and that everything obeyed that and was punctuated by prayer at the right time, whatever else ought to be happening. She was making the comparison with her own chaotic life, and the expression that she used as she left was clocking up the hours. Clocking up the hours. Hours of prayer, the liturgical hours, hours of merit, hours of being where we should be at a given time. In fact, the translation of the French breviary that came out after the council immediately was Prière du temps présent, prayer of the present time. And the divine office is a calling back to contact with reality, present to the present. But then I reflected on many things, and I went back to early days, for early days affect all time, do they not? We are formed by certain events and certain influences. And I recall how, growing up, it was through divine providence in a monastic situation, for the community looking after our parish were very good Benedictine monks, 7 of them. And they had that. And when I used to go into church, nearly any time of the day, I would see prayer going on, either from people or from the brethren themselves. They had their fixed moments, and they'd come into choir, even in the little priory that was our little parish or big parish, and they'd have their hoods up, the elephant ears of the English Benedictines, and they'd chant away. The first office they would have together would be Lauds, and then they would stay for the conventual mass, even in our parish. They were all there. And then they'd come back at 5 o'clock in the evening, and they'd have vespers. And then after the evening mass, quite often, they'd have Compline with the people. The difference being that Compline was fully sung. And by the way, I still use the melody at Compline. Actually, I recorded it yesterday. You can hear it if you want to on YouTube. But then one day, the good monk that was forming me, before he started the instruction that day, came out with this. I've been talking to Don Kevin. He thinks it'd be a good idea for you to go up to the monastery over Easter. Of course, we'll help you to get there, don't worry about that. So anyway, off I went to Ampleforth. And there, wow, 120 monks belonged to that community, and that was something else at Easter. And what happened? All time was changed by those times exposed to something greater, e.g., the bell. The bell. You could hear it a few seconds or even minutes nearly before, for instance, Compline at night. It was so huge that you could hear this in the air for a while. And then it got louder and it goes boing, 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 and on it would go. And that was the moment at which no one was to speak until the following morning, because the summum silentium, the great silence, would fall, and all the brethren, after Compline, had to go around with their hoods up. Why am I saying all this? impressions last. And I remember how hearing the monks, starting off regularly several times a day and even at night, they would get up very early, starting off with either in Latin or in English, "O God, come to my aid, Deus in adiutorium meum intende." That was something which reminded me, wow, God reigns over all these moments in time. Whatever the world is doing outside there, they're coming back, they're coming back, they're coming back, they're coming back, back to base. And they're not allowed to flee away from their center and from God. The structure maintains, the structure protects. What did I do? Well, why not? And indeed, the father who was forming me hinted the difference between praying not devotions, but the prayer of the church. That too can be yours. Get the Grail Psalms, he was saying, hinting strongly that that should be yours as well. And so I did. And do you know, that made a huge difference, because then, even in school days and college days, the coming back to the divine office was there without the bell, but it made a huge difference. You would not go far away from your center if you had these regular pauses. And then eventually, when it came to entering the monastic life, the bell was there. And do you know what was written on our bell in the big monastery that I was transferred to in Italy? It was this. We went up to the belfry to see it, and it said, in one of the two bells still there from when it was built, in Latin, Dom Hugo, the abbot, made us for the Alpha and the Omega in the year, I think it was 1218. It was slightly later than the actual monastery itself. And they were still calling us to prayer, like the Muezzin in Arab countries, at all hours, reminding us that we were doing something bigger than ourselves, and that time was only on loan. Here it is. You can just about see it, the big belfry with the two bells on top, still ringing away. Now I finish. Coming here, the same thing applies. If one is there as a sentinel where one should be, and it applies to you, my friends, it applies big time to you. Before the Blessed Sacrament at the appointed time, at the Rosary at the appointed time, at your morning prayer at the appointed time, at your evening prayer at the appointed time, at the Angelus at the appointed time, the appointment with Him, away from time to adjust all time properly. That, if it's not there, leaves you at huge risk. And so I got the thing together pretty well straight away and gave it to the bishop, because then it obliges, once he gives his okay, the timetable. And that is, if you like, what one is examined on at the last day. Was I there at these appointments? And if not, why not? And if our time is going elsewhere, where were you when I was waiting for you? For think of these things, my friends, at the end of this year. It came, it went, it's going, and it will not come again, and its hours are written on your book of life until the end of time.